I'm going to do this video on the Santa Barbara Isla Vista murders from May 23rd. The shooter was Elliot Rogers, and these pictures are from the crime scene, and there was a couple things on these pictures that I wanted to point out. This one here is the night it happened. This happened about 9:20 at night, I think, is when he finally crashed his car. Allegedly, and then this must be the next morning or the next day. The crime scene was still there, but I want to point out that they said that he hit somebody on a bicycle when he crashed, and I just thought it was interesting that this picture, there's no bike. Okay, this was the one picture more recent after he crashed. It was at night, and like I said, this was at night. And here, which must be the next day because it's sunlight, there's a bike there. So, you know, is this a crime scene or is this a stage? Because it just seems awful weird that a bike would show up in that fashion, laying on the ground like that, in a story that, you know, this guy allegedly hit a bicyclist at the end of his rampage. So I just wanted to point that out. Very strange. Also, they said that he shot himself after he had fled and crashed his car. Well, here's a really good close-up picture of his car, and, you know, I don't see any blood. So, I mean, there might be explanations to this, why that bike's there. There might be, you know, maybe he got out of the car and shot himself. I don't know, but it's just awful weird that, you know, these stories come out and the evidence that you see doesn't really match it. There's no blood anywhere in that. I mean, if he shot himself anywhere near the driver's seat in the head, there'd be blood all over those airbags, and there's just nothing there. Also, I want to point out his license plate number. His name was Elliot Rogers, and as you can see, his license plate is 6EL. And EL, or L, is another name for Saturn and other gods such as Elohim. And of course, the number 6 there is a number for Saturn. You know, the six-sided hexagon. It's the sixth planet from the sun. And it's named after Saturday, the sixth day of the week. Or Saturday's named after Saturn, actually. So there you have that 6EL. So that's what this video is going to be about. That and the other Saturnian symbolism involved in this incident in Santa Barbara, Isla Vista, California. Next up on this is all the purple, and if you see my other videos, you know that purple is a important color to the cult of Saturn. This is the 4 Mart in Isla Vista where Chris Martinez was allegedly killed. And as you can see, there's purple flowers in the bullet holes of that storefront window. That right there is Elliot Rogers' father's house. And you can see it's painted purple, the railings and the doors and the gutters. And you can even see the television truck, which is right here. If you saw it in the other picture, is also purple. And there's that television truck. And I think the media is so controlled too with all this, because, you know, here's an interview with Chris Martinez's father from CNN, and here's the reporter. You can't see much of her shirt, but it's a purple shirt. And that's that interview with Chris Martinez's father. That right there is the 4 Mart, the 4 Deli Mart in Isla Vista where Chris Martinez was allegedly shot. And that IV, which probably stands for Isla Vista, But that IV is kind of important because that could also stand for Isis and Venus. This is Elliot Rodgers' car, allegedly. And this was obviously a picture, you know, before this event happened. But a couple things on this car I want to mention, point out. Look at the tires, the wheels actually. You see that right there? Picture that as a 5-pointed pentagram. And where is that 5th point? Pointing straight down, which is also a representation of Venus. But look at the back tire, same thing. They're both, I mean, this could be a coincidence, but I doubt it. This, I'm sure, is a stage picture. Same with that back tire, that back rim. It's in the shape of the pentagram with the 1 point pointing straight down, which just happens to be in sync with the front tire. But here's the license plate again, and I want to touch on that 6EL. And that X, by the way, I just saw another video that really showed some meaning to the X, which I thought was interesting, and I maybe I'll try to put a link to that video. This is Wikipedia, and I want to show you who L is. And L is a deity, as you can see, and I'm not going to read all that to you, but if you want to look more about L in Wikipedia, you can look him up. There's L seated on the throne. And that's a depiction of him. But I want to bring you down to a specific story of L, and there's many of them. If you go and check out Wikipedia. But I want to take you down here because this gets really interesting with what happened in the Isla Vista in this murder. And it's this story right here where it says, "But on the occurrence of the pestilence and mortality, Kronos offers his only begotten son as a whole burnt offering to his father Sky and circumcises himself, compelling his allies also to do the same." Kronos is another name for Saturn. But here's a fuller account, and it says, "It was custom of the ancients in great crisis of danger for the rulers of a city or nation, in order to avert the common ruin, to give up the most beloved of their children for sacrifice as a ransom to the avenging daemons. And those who were thus given up were sacrificed with mystic rites. Kronos then, whom the Phoenicians called Elis, who was king of the country and subsequently after his decease was deified as the star Saturn." Okay, so L is Saturn and Kronos. So that's why that Elliot name, his name starts with EL, and his license plate also EL. And I also want to point out another thing about this. Elliot Rodgers was 22 years old. And that 22, if you've watched my other videos, especially about the obelisk on Hill Cumorah and the distances, there's a ton of 22 in those distances, miles, kilometers. It just is showing up everywhere. Also, his oldest victim he shot was 22 years old. But I also want to show you this. This is a BMW 328i, okay? And if you add that up, the 328i, and I don't know if that's not going to focus really well, but it's 8, it's 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 8 is 13. I is the 9th letter of the alphabet. 13 and 9 is 22. Okay, so there's even 22 symbolism on his car. And of course, I being the 9th letter is also the number of Saturn, and also the eye itself. You know, one thing I haven't shown you yet on my videos, and I'm going to get to this, is on the southern portion of Saturn is actually an all-seeing eye. And I'll see if I can find some video of that. On the northern portion is the hexagon. But on the southern portion is an all-seeing eye. Okay, so that eye has you know, more meaning than just the eye. It's the 9th letter. It's the eye on the southern portion of Saturn, and it makes that 328 when you add 9 to it be 22. That story we just said about L and the only begotten son, and here's a CNN news report.
Had an opportunity to sit down with Mr. Martinez, who was incredibly emotional.
He's our only child. Right now is to try to see if we can do anything to make my son's death mean something. Because that's all we've got.
He's not going to grow up to be a man, to work in the world.
They would like to circumcise, they'd like to circumcise you of your gun. I think that's what most of these shootings lately are all about. Whether this is a stage shooting or it actually happened, as they say, and this guy, you know, was controlled somehow, I think all the symbolism here tells me that it's more to it than just some nut, you know, that went crazy. But anyway, that's what this, I think, is all about in all these shootings. This Saturnian cult, I think, wants the United States, the people of the United States, disarmed, and it's not for reasons that are good for this country. That I can tell you. Moving on to some other Saturn symbolism, where they get everybody to do this, and they don't even have a clue as what they're doing. And you see these at these vigils all the time now. Is you see these people with candles, and what do they have around the candles? As if like they're going to drip wax on them, which, you know what, I guess that makes some sense, but you know what, really, that's just a cover. Because you know what those rings are? They might help keep the wax off your hands, but those are the rings of Saturn. And that's what those are representing in those candles. And, you know, I mean, that's just how cruel this cult is. They just, I mean, look at that. That is the rings of Saturn, right down to the candle, you know, that you're honoring these people with. And, you know, like I said, it's plausible to say, okay, it keeps the wax off you, but you know what? It's also the ring of Saturn. What do? They bring Mr. Martinez out, put him on a stage, he's doing his talk. They take this picture and post it everywhere. And here's the guy, Martinez, literally doing a Heil Hitler. And that's the picture they're posting out there. And that right there is freaking bizarre, because that's not an accident. I mean, they take these pictures, they pick which ones they're going to put out. That's a Heil Hitler. This incident took place in Santa Barbara, California, and of course Santa comes from Saturn. This is actually a depiction of Saturn. As you can see, old man Saturn, you know, pulled by these demons or whatever they are. But that's where, you know, the depiction of Santa Claus came. They just replaced him with reindeers, put a red suit and beard on him. And where did he go? Santa Claus is from the North Pole, which, when Saturn was the son of Earth, was on the North Pole. It was actually due north. And the Earth wasn't tilted that time. It was straight up and down like Saturn. And Saturn was due north from the North Pole. That's where Santa Claus came from, is Saturn, and it was in Santa Barbara.